Silent predators. The Aurora drifted through the void between star systems, its utilitarian hull gleaming dully in the distant starlight. Unlike military vessels with their sleek lines and obvious weapon ports, the Aurora was blunt and practical, a simple transport ship designed to carry supplies to the outer colonies. Its manifest listed agricultural equipment, medicinal supplies, and construction materials. Notably absent was any mention of weapon systems. Captain Maya Okafor stood on the bridge, dark eyes scanning the sensor readouts with practiced precision. At 42, she had the weathered look of someone who had seen her fair share of the harshness space had to offer. Before joining the Colonial Expansion Initiative, she'd spent 15 years in emergency management on Earth, coordinating disaster response in some of the planet's most unforgiving environments. Proximity alert, Captain, called out Elias Nash, the ship's navigator. His fingers danced across the holographic interface, bringing up a detailed scan. Unknown vessel, approaching fast. Not broadcasting identification. Maya's expression remained neutral. Interesting. Pirates, most likely. Out here in the fringe, they're getting bolder. Should I activate the emergency beacon? Asked Communications Officer Leila Chakrabarty, her hand hovering over the console. Not yet, Maya replied, a hint of calculation in her voice. Let's see what they want first. The bridge crew, all 5 of them, exchanged glances. They weren't military. They weren't even security personnel. They were colonial specialists, a botanist, an engineer, a doctor, a geologist, and an administrator. And yet, none of them seemed particularly alarmed by the approaching threat. All hands, Maya announced over the ship-wide communication system. We have visitors. Protocol Sigma. Throughout the ship, the remaining 7 crew members paused in their tasks, nodded to themselves, and calmly began preparations that looked nothing like panic. Warlord Krazak of the Jaxiri Horde stood on the command deck of the Void Talon, his scaled skin gleaming under the harsh lights. 3 meters tall with armored plates covering vital areas of his body, he was an imposing sight even among his own kind. The Jaxiri had evolved on a high-gravity world with extreme temperature variations, resulting in a species of natural warriors with redundant organs and immense physical strength. Scans complete, Warlord reported his second-in-command, Scarvex. Human vessel, transport class. Crew complement of 12. Minimal shielding. No apparent weapon systems. Krazak's jaw plates clicked together in a Jaxiri expression of pleasure. A gift from the cosmic winds. After 3 cycles of meager raids, we finally have something of value. Humans are classified as Deathworlders, Scarvex cautioned, mandibles twitching nervously. The Galactic Council rates their homeworld as Class 9 habitability. Their biological resilience is significant, which is precisely why they'll fetch such a high price. Krazak grumbled. Their organs alone will cover our expenses for a full cycle. Their adaptive immune systems are particularly valuable to the Vextar medical collectives. He turned to his weapons officer. Disable their engines and communications. Standard approach. Purple energy lanced from the Void Talon, enveloping the Aurora in electromagnetic tendrils that crawled across its hull, seeking vulnerabilities. The human ship's engines flickered and died, leaving it adrift. Clean hit, reported the weapons officer. Their systems are disabled. Excellent. Krazak purred. Prepare boarding parties. I want them taken alive. As the boarding shuttles prepared to launch, none of the Jaxiri noticed the lack of distress signals from the human vessel. None of them questioned why a ship traveling in pirate-infested space would be so poorly defended. None of them wondered why the humans weren't attempting to flee or negotiate. It was the first of many mistakes they would make that day. The Jaxiri boarding party cut through the Aurora's airlock with precision tools designed for the purpose. 20 warriors in combat exoskeletons flooded into the ship, disruptor weapons at the ready. They expected resistance, barricades, perhaps even improvised weapons. Instead, they found Captain Okafor and her bridge crew standing calmly in the main corridor, hands raised in surrender. "Welcome aboard the Aurora," Maya said, her voice steady. "We're an unarmed civilian transport. We won't resist." Scarvex, leading the boarding party, felt his instincts prickling with suspicion. This was too easy. In his experience, prey either fought or fled. They didn't welcome predators with calm professionalism. "Secure them," he ordered, watching carefully as his warriors bound the humans' wrists with polymer restraints designed to withstand 3 times standard human strength. "Search the ship. Find the rest of the crew." As the pirates dispersed through the vessel, Maya's eyes met those of her crew members briefly. No words were exchanged, but something passed between them. A shared understanding, perhaps, or a promise. Warlord Krozak strode through the airlock 20 minutes later, his massive frame dwarfing the humans before him. He surveyed the captives with the practiced eye of someone assessing merchandise. "Your ship and its contents now belong to the Jaksuri Horde," he announced, voice modulator adding threatening bass tones. "Your lives are mine to sell or dispose of as I see fit." Maya nodded as if accepting a minor inconvenience. "May I introduce my crew? Dr. Elena Volkov, our medical officer. Elias Nash, navigator. Layla Chakrabarty, communications. Thomas Rodriguez, engineer." The casual introductions unsettled Krozak, though he didn't show it. "Take them to separate holding cells," he ordered. "Begin inventory of the cargo." As 2 pirates led Maya away, she called back, "Warlord, our life support systems require regular maintenance in these conditions. Engineer Rodriguez should check the environmental controls soon." "Your comfort is not my concern," Krozak dismissed. Rodriguez, a stocky man with calloused hands, shrugged. "Just trying to be helpful. Those systems can be tricky if you don't know human equipment." In the cargo hold, pirates were scanning crates and containers, cataloging their contents. "Agricultural equipment as listed," Warlord reported one subordinate. "Hydroponic systems, soil analyzers, cultivation tools, medical supplies, construction materials. Nothing that can be used as weapons." Krozak pressed. The subordinate hesitated. "Well, some of the cultivation equipment includes powered exoskeletons for heavy lifting, and the construction materials include plasma cutters for structural work, but they're not designated as weapons in any classification system." Krozak moved to where Dr. Volkov was being held. The human doctor watched him with clinical interest, her pale eyes tracking his movements with unsettling precision. "What are you staring at, human?" he growled. "Fascinating physiology," she replied evenly. "The reinforced carapace around your thoracic cavity suggests adaptation to significant environmental pressure. However, the joint articulation leaves small vulnerable gaps that most wouldn't notice." Krozak unconsciously shifted his stance to cover the weakness she'd identified. Throughout the ship, similar scenes played out as the captured humans made observations that seemed innocuous on the surface, but left the pirates increasingly uneasy. In the ship's botanical lab, the specialist was explaining various earth plants growing in sealed containers to a curious pirate. "This one is particularly interesting," she said, indicating a vibrant flowering specimen. "It produces compounds that cause temporary paralysis in most exoskeletal nervous systems." The pirate quickly moved away from the indicated plant. On the bridge, Navigator Nash examined their captors with focused intensity. "Your ship has a quantum-fold propulsion system, doesn't it?" he asked his guard casually. "I've always admired their efficiency, though the gravimetric stabilization depends heavily on the central matrix alignment." Throughout the ship, the humans continued their unsettling behavior, observing, commenting, seeming almost pleased with the situation. And when Captain Okafor was brought to Krozak for interrogation, her smile reminded him of something he couldn't quite place until he remembered the apex predators of his own home world, the ones that didn't need to rush, because the prey was already exactly where they wanted it. "Take the navigator to our bridge," Krozak ordered. "Have him explain these course calculations. I want to know their destination coordinates." 3 pirates escorted Nash through the narrow service corridors of the Aurora. As they reached a maintenance junction, Nash suddenly stopped. "What's the problem, human?" hissed the rear guard, prodding him with a neural baton. "Just wondering," Nash said, bracing his shoulders against the left wall. "If you've ever studied basic physics." Before the guard could respond, Nash planted his right boot against the opposite wall and launched himself backward with explosive force. The rear guard took the full impact of Nash's body mass, accelerated by muscles evolved to function in Earth's punishing gravity. The pirate's exoskeleton cracked with a sound like splintering ceramic. The lead guard spun around, raising his disruptor, too slow. Nash had already dropped to the floor and swept the pirate's legs with a practiced motion. As he fell, his head struck a protruding conduit with a dull thud. "First lesson," Nash said to the remaining guard who was frantically trying to activate his emergency beacon. "Force equals mass times acceleration. Earth gravity gave us the muscle mass. Your poor tactical assessment gave me the opportunity." Elsewhere in the ship, Engineer Rodriguez examined his restraints while two pirates inventoried the construction equipment. "Those plasma cutters require careful handling," he commented casually. "The field containment can drift if the calibration pins aren't set properly." One of the pirates looked up in alarm. "What calibration pins?" Rodriguez nodded toward a small metal rod protruding from a nearby device. As the curious pirate leaned closer, Rodriguez suddenly lunged forward. His bound hands grabbed the metal rod, twisting it sharply. The device hummed to life, its cutting field slicing through his restraints before the startled pirates could react. Rodriguez rolled behind a storage container as disruptor fire scorched the deck where he'd been standing. He emerged holding a meter-long metal bar from a construction frame. "Let me show you something about leverage," he called out, swinging the bar with practiced precision. Throughout the Aurora, alarms began to blare as the ship's systems registered unexpected failures. The artificial gravity fluctuated, then failed completely. In the Zerog environment, the pirates flailed awkwardly, their evolutionary development in stable gravity leaving them ill-equipped for movement without directional reference. Their communication devices erupted with panicked reports. "The medical officer has escaped. 2 guards down in the lab. The engineer has." The transmission cut off with an ominous crackle. In his command room, Warlord Krazak floated awkwardly, claws gripping a support beam for stability. Across from him, Captain Okafor remained perfectly oriented despite the lack of gravity, her movements controlled and efficient. "What have you done?" he demanded. "Nothing yet," she replied, pushing gently off a wall and drifting precisely toward him. But Engineer Rodriguez mentioned she might need to adjust the gravitational field matrix, something about making the playing field more equitable. A crash echoed through the hull, followed by a piercing alarm. "That's interesting," Maya remarked, checking her wrist display. "It appears Dr. Volkov has reached your warrior's barracks." She was quite interested in examining Jaxuri physiology more thoroughly. Krazak's compound eyes widened as understanding finally dawned. "You planned this." Maya's predatory smile returned. "Warlord, when you come from a death world, you learn to plan for everything." Natural hunters. In the botanical laboratory, 3 Jaxuri pirates floated helplessly in the zero-gravity environment, their limbs thrashing ineffectually as they tried to orient themselves. The ship's botanist, Dr. Mailin, moved among them with fluid grace, her movements precise and economical, the result of 6 months of zero training that all colonial personnel received as standard. "Fascinating evolutionary adaptation," she commented, observing their struggles. "Your species clearly developed in a stable gravity environment. Your musculature and proprioception are optimized for strength, not adaptability." With swift motions, she grabbed 2 unmarked containers from a nearby rack and slammed them together. The impact shattered their seals, mixing their contents. An immediate chemical reaction produced a rapidly expanding cloud of dense green mist. "Interesting compound." Lynn's voice echoed through the thickening fog. "Earth plants developed chemical defenses against insect predators over millions of years. Your respiratory system has similar vulnerabilities." The pirates fired blindly into the mist, their shots going wide as their compound eyes struggled to penetrate the haze. One by one, they began to wheeze and stagger as the caustic compounds attacked the sensitive membranes of their breathing passages. "It's not lethal," Lynn explained, her voice seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Just a mild neuromuscular irritant that targets chitinoid respiratory pathways. I developed it while studying pest control for earth crops." A shadow moved through the mist, followed by a dull thud, then another. "Though I suppose," Lynn continued conversationally as the last pirate collapsed, "the effect is rather more dramatic on larger organisms." In the medical bay of the Aurora, Dr. Elena Volkov was conducting an impromptu anatomy lesson. 4 Jaksuri security officers lay immobilized on the floor, their limbs locked in awkward positions. "Your nervous system is fascinating," she explained to the paralyzed but conscious pirates. "Pressure applied to these junction points disrupts motor control without causing permanent damage. We use similar techniques in human emergency medicine." She methodically collected various medical instruments, arranging them with surgical precision on a mobile tray. "Now, about your communication systems," she continued. "I need to contact my colleagues throughout the ship." Throughout the Aurora, the humans were systematically neutralizing the pirate crew. Geologist Marcus Chen had barricaded himself in the storage area, where he was examining the pirates' weapons with professional interest. "Remarkable craftsmanship," he muttered, hefting a disruptor rifle. "The ergonomics are all wrong for human hands, but the operating principle is intuitive enough." When a security team attempted to breach his position, Chen greeted them with surprisingly accurate fire, his first shots deliberately striking non-vital areas. Precise wounds that incapacitated without killing. "I spent 3 years conducting geological surveys in the Caspian dispute zone," he called through the smoking doorway. "Colonial geologists don't get military escorts in contested territories. We learned to shoot on day 1. On the bridge of the Aurora, Navigator Nash had established control over the ship's systems. His fingers danced across the console, bypassing security protocols with practiced ease. "Their network architecture is actually quite elegant," he remarked to the unconscious pirates at his feet, "but they rely too heavily on centralized authentication. Amateur mistake." Captain Okafor now floated freely in the main hold while Warlord Krazak remained bound to a support strut, his mandibles clicking in impotent rage. "You never intended to colonize anything," he accused. "You're military operatives." Maya laughed, a sound that sent uncomfortable vibrations through Krazak's thorax. "That's the remarkable thing, Warlord. We're exactly what our credentials say, a colonial advance team. I was an administrative coordinator before joining the colonial program." She pushed off from a wall, drifting closer to him. "But here's what you don't understand. On Earth, even our civilians are dangerous." Krazak's communication implant crackled. "Warlord," came a panicked voice. "The humans are in control of our engine room. They've reprogrammed the maintenance drones to." Maya smiled. "That would be Rodriguez. She's always been creative with repurposing technology." Scarvex, second in command of the Jaksuri boarding party, rallied the remaining combat-capable pirates in the ship's main hangar bay. 14 warriors, less than half their original force, formed a defensive perimeter around their shuttle. "We retreat to our vessel, regroup, and use the main cannons to disable their life support," he ordered, mandibles clicking rapidly in distress. "These are not normal colonists." A maintenance panel above their position slid open. Before anyone could react, several small metallic objects dropped into their midst. The objects bounced across the deck with hollow ringing sounds. "Pressure vessels," a veteran pirate shouted. "Scatter." Too late. The makeshift grenades, compressed air canisters with their release valves modified, detonated with concussive force. The blast sent pirates tumbling in the Zerog environment, their armored bodies colliding with bulkheads and equipment. Engineer Rodriguez descended through the opening, propelling herself with controlled bursts from a repurposed thruster pack. In one hand, she held what appeared to be a mining tool, now reconfigured into something far more threatening. "Sorry about the rough landing," she called out, "but I needed to test a theory about concussive force dispersal in vacuum-adjacent environments." 4 pirates recovered quickly enough to raise their weapons. Rodriguez triggered her device. A focused electromagnetic pulse surged outward, temporarily disabling their disruptors and neural implants. "Another interesting theory confirmed," she noted clinically. "Your weapons rely on synchronized electromagnetic field generators. Disrupt the synchronization." Scarvex lunged forward, using natural weapons instead of technology. His specialized attack claws, evolved for high-speed strikes, slashed toward Rodriguez's throat. The engineer pivoted with unexpected speed, using the thruster pack to alter her trajectory. The pirate's strike missed by millimeters. Rodriguez countered by driving a small metal tool, little more than a screwdriver, into the gap between Scarvex's thoracic plates. Physiological vulnerability confirmed as well, Rodriguez said as the second-in-command convulsed in pain. Dr. Volkov's anatomical briefing was spot on. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Void Talon, several human crew members had gained access to the pirate vessel's systems. They disabled the targeting safeguards and reprogrammed the defensive protocols. "I'm impressed by the redundancies," Chen said, examining the ship schematics, "but they've centralized critical junction points in predictable locations." "Military thinking," Nash agreed, finalizing a command sequence. "They designed for maximum firepower, but neglected asymmetric threats. The ship's internal defenses, designed to repel boarders, suddenly activated, but with modified parameters. Containment fields sprang up at strategic intersections, trapping groups of pirates in isolated sections of their own vessel." In the cargo hold, Maya finished securing a neural inhibitor to Krazak's central ganglion. The device, constructed from medical equipment, ensured his cooperation. "Your crew fought well," she said, almost respectfully. "But they made the same mistake every non-human species makes when dealing with Earth natives." "And what mistake is that?" Krazak managed, his voice distorted by partial paralysis. "You see our adaptations as specialized evolutionary outcomes." Maya tapped her temple. "They're not. Humans don't evolve for specific threats. We evolve to solve problems. Any problem, with whatever tools are available." She activated her comm unit. "Status report. Engine room secured," came Rodriguez's voice. 70% of enemy combatants neutralized or contained. "Medical bay and laboratories under control," reported Dr. Volkov. "I'd synthesized enough paralytic compound to handle any remaining resistance." "Bridge secured," Nash added. "Ship systems responding to our commands. I've isolated their communication array from the broader pirate network." "Cargo areas and armory locked down," Chen confirmed. "I've cataloged their weapons cache. Quite an impressive collection." "Botanical labs and life support functioning normally," Lin concluded, "though I've adjusted the atmospheric mix in sections C through E to induce mild sedation in Jaxiri physiology." Maya smiled at the captured pirate warlord. 4 hours. That's how long it took 12 unarmed civilians to capture 2 vessels and neutralize a crew of experienced space pirates. Krazak's compound eyes reflected dull resignation. "What happens now?" "Execution." "No," Maya said, activating the ship's long-range communication array. "We contact your fleet commander. I believe we have a proposition that might interest the Jaxiri horde." The holographic projection of Grand Warlord Tracer materialized above the command console. The Grand Warlord's carapace bore elaborate markings of authority, deep crimson with silver inlays denoting countless successful campaigns. His compound eyes narrowed as he took in the unexpected sight. A human female sitting comfortably on Krazak's command throne, with the warlord himself bound and subdued nearby. "This communication uses verified command protocols," the Grand Warlord chittered, mandibles working in confusion. "Explain yourself, human." "Grand Warlord Trazer, I'm Captain Maya Okafor of the colonial vessel Aurora. Your subordinate attempted to raid my ship approximately 4 hours ago." She gestured casually toward Krozak. As you can see, the outcome wasn't what he anticipated. The Grand Warlord's thoracic plates clicked in agitation. One human ship against a Jaxiri war party. Impossible. Would you like to see for yourself? Maya tapped a command, and the projection split to display security footage from both vessels. Humans systematically outmaneuvering pirates, improvising weapons, exploiting environmental advantages, and turning the pirates' own technology against them. These can't be authentic, the Grand Warlord protested, but his posture betrayed growing unease. They are, Maya assured him. I think it's time for an important cultural discussion about humans, Grand Warlord. Your intelligence on our species is dangerously incomplete. She brought up a holographic display of Earth. This is our home world. You know it as a Class 9 death world with extreme environmental variations, high gravity, aggressive predators, and atmospheric volatility. We're aware of terrestrial conditions, the Grand Warlord clicked dismissively. But you don't understand their implications. Maya zoomed in on various Earth biomes. Arctic wastes, scorching deserts, dense jungles, open savannas. Most species evolved to specialize in a particular environment. Humans didn't have that luxury. We faced constant environmental shifts that required adaptation, not to specific threats, but to change itself. She displayed visual comparisons between Jaxiri evolutionary development, showing specialized hunting appendages, armor plating, and sensory organs, and human development, highlighting the less specialized, but more versatile human form. Your species developed biological weapons, Maya continued. We developed problem-solving abilities. Your exoskeleton protects against specific threats. Our intelligence lets us identify and exploit any vulnerability. She stepped into view, demonstrating by taking the simple stylus and, with a flick of her wrist, embedding it in a metal panel with enough force to make it quiver. This is why we don't list weapons on our manifests, Grand Warlord. From a human perspective, everything is a potential weapon. The Grand Warlord's antenna quivered. You're military specialists. That's the part you're not understanding. Maya interrupted. Each crew member displayed their credentials. Technical engineering degrees, botanical research backgrounds, medical certifications, geological survey licenses, all civilian credentials without a single military designation among them. Not one of us has military training beyond standard colonial self-defense courses, Maya explained, and that's what should terrify you, Grand Warlord. Dr. Volkov stepped forward. On our home world, children are taught to identify toxic plants before they can even speak properly. Our medical students learn 37 ways to stop a heart before they learn how to restart one. Our engineers view everything as a system that can be modified, repurposed, or weaponized, Rodriguez added. And our transport ships, Maya concluded, don't bother listing weapons because the galactic classification system doesn't have categories for what we consider weapons. The Grand Warlord's compound eyes reflected the scrolling footage of his defeated warriors. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost its imperious tone. What do you want, human? Maya smiled. Now we can begin negotiations. I think you'll find our terms surprisingly reasonable, considering the alternatives. 2 weeks later, the Aurora continued its journey to the outer colonies, its mission delayed but not derailed. On the bridge, Captain Okafor reviewed the terms of the agreement that now hung, framed, on the bulkhead. The Jaxiri horde would cease all actions against human vessels and colonies. In exchange, humans would provide the Jaxiri with agricultural technology and medical knowledge suitable for their physiology. A joint human Jaxiri patrol would be established in the fringe sectors, protecting legitimate commerce from other pirate factions. Do you think they'll honor it? Asked Nash, studying the document. They will, Maya replied confidently. Not just because we hold Krozak and his crew as guarantors, but because they're intelligent enough to recognize an opportunity when they see one. She turned to the viewport, watching the stars streak by. The galaxy is learning an important lesson about humans, Nash. We don't need warships to be dangerous. We don't need weapons to be lethal. And yet we prefer to build rather than destroy, Nash mused. That's the most terrifying thing about us, Maya said with a small smile. We're always willing to extend a hand in friendship, even to those who try to kill us, because we understand something most species don't. What's that, Captain? That survival isn't about being the strongest or the most vicious. It's about being the most adaptable. She tapped the agreement. Today, adaptation means finding allies rather than making enemies. Across the stars, word was spreading through the galactic communication networks. Beware of human vessels, especially the unarmed ones. They may not carry weapons, but that's only because they don't need to. Every human is a weapon, forged in the crucible of a death world. And the most dangerous predators are the ones who smile when you think you've caught them.